The mahogany-paneled walls of Peterson and Associates law offices seemed to close in as I watched my cousins Marcus and Victoria gloat over what they thought was their ultimate victory. Their designer clothes and smug expressions were a stark contrast to my simple business attire, purchased from a department store sale. "Can you believe she actually showed up?" Victoria Stage whispered to Marcus, her Cartier bracelet jingling as she gestured dismissively in my direction. As if Grandma would leave anything to the family disappointment. I sat quietly, my grandmother's vintage Hermes scarf draped around my neck, her last gift to me before she passed. Inside my bag an envelope waited, heavy with the weight of secrets and truth. "Let's get this over with," Uncle Richard, their father and self-appointed family patriarch, demanded. "Some of us have real business to attend to." Mr. Peterson, the family lawyer who'd handled the Peterson fortune for 3 generations, cleared his throat. "We're just waiting for Dash." The door opened and in walked Mr. James Chin, my grandmother's personal attorney. The one nobody else knew about. "What's he doing here?" Uncle Richard demanded, standing up. "This is a family matter." "Indeed it is," Mr. Chin replied calmly, setting his briefcase on the table. "And as Elizabeth Peterson's personal attorney for the past 5 years, I have every right to be here." I suppressed a smile, remembering the day Grandma had introduced me to Mr. Chin. "Always have a backup plan, Sarah," she'd said, her eyes twinkling with that familiar mischief. "Especially when dealing with sharks in designer suits." The past 5 years flashed through my mind. The weekly tea sessions with Grandma where she taught me about business, the late-night discussions about the family empire, and most importantly, the truth about the Peterson fortune. "Shall we begin?" Mr. Peterson asked, pulling out what everyone assumed was the only copy of the trust documents. Marcus leaned back, adjusting his Rolex. "We all know how this goes. The family trust splits between the legitimate heirs." "Sorry, cousin," he smirked in my direction, "but that doesn't include the cleaning lady's daughter." My mother had worked as the Peterson mansion's housekeeper before marrying my father, a fact my cousins never let me forget. That she'd later become a successful business owner herself didn't matter to them. In their eyes, we'd always be servants who'd risen above our station. "Actually," Mr. Chin interrupted, "we should start with Elizabeth Peterson's video statement." "Video statement?" Uncle Richard's face reddened. "What video statement?" Mr. Chin pulled out a laptop and suddenly Grandma's face filled the screen. She looked elegant as ever in her signature pearls, sitting in her study just 3 months before her passing. "My darling family," she began, her voice strong despite her illness. "If you're watching this, then the game is finally over. And what a game it's been." Victoria shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's smirk faltered. "For years I've watched you fight over my money like vultures circling a carcass. You've attended every family dinner, laughed at every joke and kissed up to every whim, all while plotting how to get your hands on the Peterson fortune." Uncle Richard started to protest, but Grandma's voice cut through his objection. "But while you were all so busy playing your parts, you missed what was really happening. You missed who was really learning, really watching, really understanding what this family's legacy should be about." The camera panned to show me sitting beside her, both of us going over business documents. "Sarah," she continued, "has spent the past 5 years learning every aspect of our family's business. Not for inheritance, not for status, but because she actually cares about what I built." My cousins' faces drained of color as Grandma continued. "While you were buying sports cars and vacationing in St. Tropez, Sarah was studying our company's operations. While you were schmoozing at country clubs, she was meeting with our employees, understanding their needs, their challenges, their hopes for the future." The video showed clips of me in various company departments, learning from ground up, just as Grandma had insisted. "So today you're not just here for the reading of a trust. You're here for a lesson in what real legacy means." Mr. Chin paused the video, turning to Mr. Peterson. "Shall we proceed with the actual documents now?" Uncle Richard slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. Elizabeth wasn't in her right mind near the end. This video is clearly dated and notarized 3 months before her passing," Mr. Chin finished. "When she was, as her doctors will attest, completely lucid and in full control of her faculties." I finally reached into my bag, pulling out the envelope I'd been carrying. "Maybe this will help clarify things." "What's that?" Victoria demanded, her perfectly manicured nails drumming nervously on the table. The real trust documents, I said quietly. The ones Grandma prepared after watching you all fight over her money at last year's Christmas dinner. Marcus lunged for the envelope, but Mr. Chin was faster. These, he announced, are the legally binding documents that supersede any previous arrangements. You get nothing, my cousins had laughed earlier, waving what they thought were the trust papers. Grandma knew you were worthless. Now I watched as Mr. Chin revealed the truth, how Grandma had restructured the entire Peterson empire, how she'd spent years preparing me to take over, how she'd ensured that her legacy would be protected from those who saw it only as a path to easy wealth. The Peterson Group, Mr. Chin read, in its entirety, passes to Sarah Peterson, who has demonstrated both the capability and the character to lead this company into the future. The silence that followed was deafening. This is impossible, Uncle Richard whispered, his face ashen. The family trust, the bylaws, were changed. I finally spoke, my voice steady. 5 years ago, when Grandma realized what you were all really after. Mr. Peterson, looking both impressed and slightly embarrassed, confirmed the document's authenticity. Everything appears to be in order. The changes were legally filed and registered. Victoria stood up, her designer dress rustling. You can't do this to us. We're Petersons. Yes, I agreed, you are. And you'll be taken care of, just not in the way you expected. Taken care of? Marcus spat the words like they were poison. What's that supposed to mean? I nodded to Mr. Chin, who distributed another set of documents. Grandma believed in family, I explained, but she also believed in earning your place. These are your new employment contracts. Victoria laughed hysterically. Employment contracts? We're shareholders, not employees. Not anymore, Mr. Chin stated. The shareholding structure has been completely reorganized. Miss Peterson now controls 90% of the company. The remaining 10% is held in a merit-based trust. I opened my laptop, pulling up the company's organizational chart. Each of you has been assigned a position based on your actual qualifications. Not your last name, not your expectations, your real abilities. Uncle Richard snatched his contract, his face purpling as he read. Regional Sales Manager? I'm the CFO. We're the CFO, I corrected. Grandma and I spent the last 2 years reviewing everyone's performance. The numbers don't lie, Uncle Richard. Under your financial leadership, we've lost market share in 3 continents. Marcus leaned forward, his expensive tie dangling in his untouched coffee. This is insane. I'm calling our lawyers. Feel free, Mr. Chin smiled. The documents are ironclad. Elizabeth Peterson knew exactly what she was doing. The video screen flickered back to life, showing Grandma's face again. If you're watching this part, she continued, then the initial shock has worn off and you're probably threatening legal action. Save your money, though God knows you've wasted enough of mine over the years. Victoria slumped in her chair, her perfect posture finally breaking. Sarah, Grandma's voice softened, show them the books. I pulled out 5 leather-bound ledgers, Grandma's private records of the past 20 years. These, I said, opening the first one, document every expense you've charged to the company. Every business trip, that was actually a vacation. Every client meeting at luxury spas. Every penny of shareholder money you've squandered. Uncle Richard's face went from purple to pale. Those are confidential. They're evidence, I cut him off. Evidence that Grandma chose not to use against you, provided you accept the new arrangement. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Years of financial misconduct, documented meticulously by a woman they'd underestimated until the end. You have 2 choices, I continued, channeling Grandma's diplomatic steel. Accept the positions offered, prove your worth to the company, and eventually earn shares through performance. Or walk away with nothing except a lot of explaining to do to the SC. Marcus stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Exactly, I replied. Which is why Grandma gave you a chance to earn your place instead of having you prosecuted. Mr. Peterson, who'd been quietly observing, finally spoke up. I advised Elizabeth against this plan. Told her it would tear the family apart. Know what she said? All eyes turned to him. She said the family was already torn apart by greed. This was her last chance to stitch it back together with something stronger than money: purpose. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. What about the house? The summer properties? The main estate has been converted into a corporate training center and employee education campus, I explained. The summer houses will be sold to fund our new employee scholarship program. Scholarship program? Uncle Richard scoffed. For the workers? For anyone in the company who wants to improve themselves, I corrected. Just like Grandma did for Mom when she wanted to start her own business. The memory of my mother hung in the air, how she'd gone from housekeeper to successful entrepreneur with Grandma's support. It was a story my cousins had mocked, never realizing it was the blueprint for Grandma's vision of merit over privilege. You have 24 hours to decide, I said, standing up. The contracts include generous salaries and benefits. The only thing you're losing is unearned privilege. And if we refuse? Marcus challenged. I pulled out one final document, a thick folder marked PC Preliminary Findings. Then these go to the authorities and you can explain to the board why the Peterson name is suddenly appearing in fraud investigations. As they absorbed this reality, my phone buzzed. The company's executive team, handpicked by Grandma and me over the past 2 years, was waiting to implement our transformation plan. One last thing, I added, reaching for Grandma's scarf. She wanted you to know that this wasn't about punishment. It's about redemption. A chance to become the family she always hoped we could be. 6 months later, I sat in what had been Grandma's office, now transformed into a modern command center for our global operations. The changes had been dramatic but necessary. Victoria, surprisingly, had flourished in her new role in corporate social responsibility. Her social skills, once used for networking at charity galas, now built meaningful partnerships with community organizations. Marcus, stripped of his executive title, had discovered a talent for product development. Working directly with our R&D team, he'd finally found purpose beyond his last name. Even Uncle Richard, after a month of sulking, had proven to be an effective regional manager. His quarterly results showed promise, real results, not creative accounting. Miss Peterson? My assistant interrupted my thoughts. The employee education program candidates are here for the scholarship announcements. I smiled, picking up Grandma's reading glasses, another inheritance she'd left me. Through them, I could see the future she'd envisioned. A company where merit outweighed birthright, where opportunity wasn't limited by last names, where family meant more than blood. Send them in, I said, straightening the vintage Hermes scarf around my neck. It's time to build something new. Because sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what's written in a will. It's the chance to prove that worth isn't given, it's earned. And as I watched my cousins join the scholarship ceremony, their faces showing genuine pride in their actual accomplishments, I knew Grandma had given us all something more valuable than money, the opportunity to become better than we were. The Peterson name would continue, but now it would stand for something more than wealth and privilege. It would stand for the principle that true legacy isn't about what you're given, it's about what you earn, what you build, and most importantly, what you give back. And somewhere, I knew Grandma was watching, finally at peace with the future of everything she'd built.